Hey there, my fellow female activists. How are you? Cathy is here, your wellness coach. And this is an extra. Um, I wanted to come today and let you know an update about something really cool that I've been participating in. So, back on, I think it was, yeah, so April of this year, it's 2025, and I was accepted into what is a lifelong clinical study, observation study is what it's considered. And it is with the Arizona Alzheimer's Institute. And knock on wood, I technically still have all my cognitive abilities that I know of. And the reason why I wanted to be part of this study, if I was accepted, which I was twofold. So the first main reason is, everyone on both sides of my family has dealt with dementia of some sort. Now, let's be very clear that dementia is actually, a form of aging, meaning that there is going to be some type of cognitive slowing down, right? Our cognitive abilities just get slower as we move through our maturity. And I will put it this way to start off, to quote Mark Twain, right? Growing old is a privilege denied to many. Okay, so don't complain about growing old. It's a privilege denied to many, something like that. And it's very true. So you'll never hear me complain about my age because age is relative, meaning that there's three different concepts when it comes to aging. You have the chronological age of someone, then you have their physical age, and then you have their mental. And I kind of slash that mental and emotional age, right? And so aging to me is just, it's relative to what you think it is. Okay. So for me, I'm in this study. Again, first reason was because I have dealt with family members who were unfortunately, um, you know, under the grips of what then became Alzheimer's. So I even was a caretaker for a close relative, and it was very life altering, both for them and then for me, right, as the caretaker. And I can only say that I can only give so much, um, like, I have so much more empathy now for anyone who has been a caretaker or caregiver, for anyone who's, got any type of chronic um, situation. But for sure, to have your memories taken from you, that is devastating. And it's hard enough to think about what the person is going through who is dealing with dementia and the different versions of dementia, because that's got to be so, so, so scary. And then to be on the other side of it where you're the one taking care of this loved one, right? Or whomever it is. So there's a lot of layers, but that was one of the main reasons because I experience firsthand what happens when someone has dementia and then seeing it go into the end result, which is the Alzheimer's. And the other second reason, um, was I knew that I could help science. And so even though I never became the astronaut I thought I was going to be at age 10, okay, because I soon find out thereafter what astronauts uh, get to go through to make it into space. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Uh, Motion sickness in me, unfortunately, that took more precedence. So I quickly, at the age of probably 11, by then, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go into, science simply because I wanted to be an astronaut. It wasn't going to work out. And I could have kept on, right, the science journey. In fact, I thought I was going to be a mechanical engineer. I was going to be an Imagineer with Disney. And I'm glad I'm not now. Anyway, But the second reason, again, was to help science. So, I after 3 years again of, or sorry, not 3 years, but 3 semesters of calculus, I realized, yeah, I'm not going into engineering. So I went and did the most awful, switch. I went from science, like engineering, and then I switched into business as a degree. So I have a marketing degree. Yeah, that was like, you don't do that, right? So anyway, but I was okay with it because I had scholarships and that's why I did. I'm like, I do not want to kill my only chance to get through school, by losing my scholarships because of bad grades. So anyway, but I digress. So back to the second reason, again, science. So I've always loved science and I love this. There's this sign and I see it in different places, but it's so cool. It's this little stick person and they have like a vial or like something bubbling in one hand and like this, the glass jar. And then the other one, they have like a calculator or something. And the logo or the the note says, stand back, I'm going to try science. Like that, I love it. So I appreciate science. And since I was not going to have a career in science, I always told myself, I want to be part of a clinical trial of some sort. Well, most clinical trials presume that you're willing to take in something, right? Whether that's a type of medicine, whether that's, some new fangle, it doesn't matter, right? But you have to consume something or you have to take in something. I didn't really want that. So when the opportunity arose, when I found out about, again, that this particular study was simply just an observation study. So for anyone who might not be familiar, obviously you would have what's called clinical trials, okay, which is what usually happens right? We learned firsthand during the pandemic. This is how you learn more about, how vaccines were made than ever before, right? More than you ever wanted to know. So that's what you call a clinical trial because someone is sticking you with something that's unproved yet. And then you have simply clinical observation studies, okay? And in this case, this one is lifelong. So they are looking for, and this is why I want to bring this to everyone. One, to share it, right? What it's all about and what I've been part of, but also to share it with others. In particular, this particular study in Arizona uh, is looking for Latinas, i.e., people of Latin background, okay, Hispanic background, and also age level 50, as I call it, age 50 and up. Okay, so they really want Latinas and people of color in general. But they were looking, in this case, for females, Latina females. So I was accepted and I was like, okay, here we go. So it's been a wild experience. And so I waited to tell everyone simply because I wanted to make sure that I went through most of what you'd call the criteria, so to speak. So I've already had now everything that I'll do for the year, in other words. So every year I will have cognitive testing. And that's insane. It's like almost 3 hours. It's like 2.5 hours of just straight bombardment of these different tests. And what was interesting was that because I've sat through some of those tests with, again, the previous loved one and other people that I've, accompanied to their appointments, it was kind of interesting because I was finally the one being given the test that I only sat through, with the loved one. So 2 hours of testing, quite quite intense. I got through it though. And then they take blood, right? They draw blood because then they test the blood. And then what will happen is now every year until I expire, I will be given those same tests. Each year may not be the whole 2.5 hours, right? They'll kind of like, I guess, um, reduce the amount of time of the test, or rather what they call, like, they won't give me that whole barrage of 2.5 hours. It'll be condensed in some way every odd year or something like that. So cognitive test taken care of, check. I have no idea how I was graded, meaning like I don't know where I land when it comes to my peers. And so the only thing that's given me any any matter of ease is the fact that if they had found anything extraneous, i.e., if they had found extraordinary outcomes, then they would then have told me, okay, we need to have you come here, right? Or get extra help, so to speak. So, so far, knock on wood, my desk that I have, my standing desk here. Anyway, so 2.5 hours of cognitive testing done for the year. Yeah. Then obviously they drew blood because they needed, or yeah, they took some of my blood because now they test it. Now they had different reasons for testing it. They test it for genetic markers. Okay, so we all know about genetics and how the DNA can show up, right, on certain of our markers that are now being found to possibly be related to, you know, cognitive decline of some sort. So that's taken care of. So every year I'll have the cognitive tests as well as blood draws. What will not continue, and which I completed finally, are optional, okay, optional, optional, optional screenings, medical screenings. And so I am happy to say, I am thrilled to say that I got through 3 of the 4 screenings. So they are 2 different PET scans, okay? And then is one MRI, and then there is a what they now call a lumbar puncture. But why would you say that? Because that sounds worse than what it used to be called, which was a spinal tap. So spinal tap is in fact now what they call lumbar puncture. Or I'm sorry, spinal tap was once called spinal tap, and now it's called lumbar puncture. Go back to spinal tap, just saying, all right? I mean, spinal tap sounds decent. Okay, I can get through it. When you tell someone I'm going to puncture something, that doesn't sound good. It's usually not a good result. So yeah, so I would definitely say that I'm feeling very successful. Why? Because I asked the staffer yesterday because I went through the spinal tap yesterday. I wanted to complete as many of the 4 before I again shared how this experience was going. So I got through the spinal tap very well. Like I was so proud of myself. What's interesting though is that I would much rather be poked with a needle versus going into a very small chamber, um, which was the MRI. Now, funny enough, Cathy has had, okay, MRI before, but what we get to understand is that this time the MRI was quite different. So a general, what they call a general, quote unquote, MRI is a machine that you would find anywhere. Okay, so I've had an MRI before. In fact, it was back in 2014. And they needed to actually, and it was for my brain. Well, more or less, but it was my brain that they were mostly taking the picture of. And I had to go through both without contrast and with contrast. So that was at the most, it was about 30 minutes, right? 15 minutes in, they brought me out. I was freaking out. And without giving me a chance, she stuck me back in the tech. And at that point, that's when so I went in one time without any dye, and they stick you with dye. And then I came out, and she didn't give me a chance to even dispute, I don't think I can do this again. She just stuck me back in and had put the dye. It might have been the other way around. Either way, I knew I didn't want to go back in, and she put me back in. But that was what they called an open MRI. It's not open. So open MR basically means that at least your torso is covered right through the tunnel, but your legs, okay, your bottom portion is open, or there is no tube around the whole body. It didn't matter. This was crazy because you're still in an enclosed space, right? But the difference was that general MRI, again, it was a lot more light letting in, so that was good. And there was more room. It was still small, and I still felt claustrophobic. And it's so loud when it starts to, anyone who's had an MRI will know this. But anyway, so there was a little bit more room, and I could see out. So there was enough headroom, right? That, I mean, I couldn't come up, right? That would I would have hit my head, but you can literally still look, and I was able to see the deck behind the window that was in front of me. So yeah, she was far away, but I could see her for the most part, and I could see light. So I could see the room. So that again, I made it through. It wasn't easy, but I did it. I did it and I was proud of myself. So that was a general MRI machine. And again, it's general because it has to fit all body shapes, right? And it has to have the availability of any part of your body, right, being taken pictures of. Okay. So I've had an MRI before. So I thought, okay, well, if I did it before, I can do it again. Well, I got through the PET scan, the first one, awesome. And that one's different. So the difference between, not that this is important, but just to give you an idea, uh, so the MRI, you're inside encased in most cases, right? They do now have MRIs that are literally quite open, where it's more like a donut shape. Well, the MRI that I was uh, in, um, or tried to go in, was definitely all closed. And so, yes, it was an open MRI, and the fact that my legs were open or like there was nothing covering, but it was all your torso. And this one was like tight, like even for me, and I'm small. So, uh, whereas a PET scan, okay, that's actually more open. So it looks like a donut, quite literally. And so there's light coming in from both ends of you. So you have an opening behind you. You can't see it, right? But you can see the light coming in. You can feel it, right? And then the tube again is not a tube because again, your torso is in the tube and the rest of you is out in the open. So there's more area space in the PET scan. Plus, it actually does do a CAT scan, right? And so the two differences in the fact that there is more open space in the PET scan and there's there's no noise. Okay, so to add on to the fact that you're in this very small space in an MRI machine, and then it is freaking loud. Every time it's taking a picture, it's a shot. It's like this really big bang, bang, bang. And it really does sound like that bang, bang, bang. And so you can actually start hearing and then counting what type of picture it's taking or how many pictures it's taking, right? By how many bangs you hear. And then I was supposed to deal with that for an hour. No, not happening. Anyway, so the first PET scan went pretty well, right? It was only 30 minutes though, right? And all they did was they shoot you up with this dye, which was radioactive. Okay, it wasn't yet confirmed by the FDA, but at this point, no one trusts any of the agencies anymore, right? And so no big deal. I kind of freaked out for a little bit, but then I calmed myself down halfway through, so I got through it. No problem. And then uh, I tried the MRI that same week. It didn't go well. I had even taken a very low dosage, but they gave me like a sedative. It wasn't enough to make me go to sleep because that would be not legal in a try in a any type of study, clinical study. I had to be awake. And interesting is that uh, knowing that I had had an MRI before without any medicine, right? I thought, oh yeah, I could handle this. Well, what I didn't realize was just how small it was. So again, they set me up. I'm thinking, okay, I'll do what I can. Well, when it's and then they like you're like secure. You can't move. And then they give you this little device that you can squeeze when you're having like, issues. And so I had the ball. I was like, okay, it's here. I'm not going anywhere. And then as soon as they had me go into the MRI machine, I'm like trying to keep my eyes closed, but I could tell how small it was. And then I made the mistake of opening my eyes. And sure enough, I was like, oh my gosh, I squeezed a little, the little alarm, and I'm like, okay, I need to come out. So I did not go through with the MRI, and I'm so sad, but I'm like, you know what? That's okay. And then the next week, I had the second PET scan. So there's two PET scans, one MRI, and then again this spinal tap. So I got through the second PET scan just barely. I think I was traumatized from the MRI experience. And so the second time around, though, with the PET scan, it wasn't as easy because it is a longer session. So there's two different sessions. And so they put you in for 20 minutes and then they take you out. You have 15 minutes to move around, go take care of Mother Nature. They reset the machine and then they actually put you in for another 30 minutes. So the first PET scan, I was still kind of sweating it, but I made it through. I'm like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to make this on my own. So the beautiful techs uh, for the PET scan the second time, I had two different people holding my hand. So they were talking to me, talking me down. And again, it's easier to take the PET scan regardless, simply because you can actually, again, there's more open airspace, okay, around you, and they can actually play music. So they would put the little speaker behind my head, right? Because it's open, it's an open space, and I can't see it, but I can tell. You can just tell when there's more, airflow. And so you can see and feel more airflow, right? So they had music, but even with the music, which helped me the first time, this second time I was like, yeah, no, I think I'm still getting over the MRI trauma. So the one of the techs went ahead and was right there with me. They held my hand. Thank you so much. And they talked to me the whole time. Okay, so the 20 minutes went past, and then that person had to leave, take care of another patient. And so a second person came and held my hand for the other 30 minutes that I had to be in the PET scan. So I'm happy to say the PET scans went awesome. I was so proud. And again, I'm not going to try the MRI ever again. I just, without being put to sleep, I don't need to go through it. Like, there's no reason. And I don't want to be put to sleep. You can't be put to sleep, right? They can try to give me, I had actually, I lie, they had actually rescheduled me. I'm like, okay, maybe if they gave me the highest dosage of sedative, that might help. I I thought about it the day before and I'm like, yeah, no amount of me being awake is going to get me through that MRI. Like, unless my life depended on it, and it doesn't, I'm not going to go through it. So I was okay with myself. And I told myself, you know what? You gave it a shot. You at least tried. And there you go. So the MRI didn't happen. And I was able to go through again the spinal tap. So the staffer yesterday told me, I was like, okay, well, what percentage of people actually finish all four optional screenings? And then out of those, how many finish the spinal tap? And so uh, he didn't, the tech, or sorry, the staffer didn't have a percentage off the top of his head, as to how many people complete all four screenings, optional screenings. And I was so glad to hear that most people, a good majority, do not go through with the spinal tap. And I just see that being so interesting. I am willing, again, like I said earlier, to get stuck with the needle in my spine. And yet I couldn't handle being in a tight space. Now, keep in mind, I don't like the dark. So I grew up not liking dark spaces. And so that alone, is pretty scary. It's interesting because when they so the PET scan, okay, again, different machine than the MRI, but and even how they have you kind of like what you call I want to say strapped in, you are actually less strapped in the MRI, right? However, because the PETA, again, I always say PETA, but the PET scan, even though you're actually more limited in because they really like fold you in, like it's quite literally you're like a little taco. It didn't freak me out. I mean, they were putting tape on my head to keep me still. They had my chin tight down. Like it was crazy. I was literally, it was only my hands can move around. And yet I was okay. Again, because I had more open air space versus the MRI. They do put like this little crown over you. And then they were going to put something over the crown so I wouldn't see. because that's what they had to do with the PET scan. They had to, the second PET scan, I told them, no, go ahead and cover my eyes because I wasn't going to make it if they had my eyes open or if I had my eyes open. And so it was interesting because, again, the difference between the two scans is simply the fact that it's quieter, okay, in the PET scan. Again, they can actually play music to, make it more ambiance for you or have more ambiance for you. And again, you're just laying there. There's nothing making loud noises. When you're in an MRI, and anyone who has had one knows what it's like, it's unnerving. So, do I wish I could have gone to the MRI? Yes. But am I ashamed that I didn't? No. I am actually very, very excited that I gave it a go and it didn't turn out, and that's okay. I'm really super proud that I went through the spinal tap though. You can even, I probably shouldn't say this to people. Um, Excellent doctor. Like I felt nothing, the only thing I felt was the first little, they obviously have to give you a numbing agent, i.e. the same type of numbing agent that they use when you get teeth extracted or something like that. That's what they use for my back. And so they give that to you so you can feel it, because it kind of burns. But after that, I felt nothing. I'm like, I hope that's okay. But he was awesome. They did awesome. Like, and it takes a little longer. Like I actually felt a little bit of my spinal fluid coming out. I was like, oh my goodness, that's not a good thing, right? But anyway, sure enough, they get vials and they're big, but they're not normal like blood vials. These are bigger vials. So it takes a while. So you're hunched over. They had me on pillows and then on a coffee table, and I was sitting on the medical bed. And then, they have you lean over. Um, and then they just go at it, and you're just sitting there as your spinal fluid is flowing out. And it takes, I mean, honestly, I think it took up to upwards of at least, I'm going to say between 5 and 10 minutes that I'm in this position where they're just taking my bodily fluids. But it was really cool, and I'm feeling wonderful now. So I didn't have any of the side effects. Thank you. And I'm feeling really good. So tomorrow, after resting yesterday all day and then today, I'm going to go at it, and I'll be good to go. But I'm really proud because, again, for someone who, again, didn't ever think that she had the opportunity to get into any type of clinical study and actually know that it's going to help. Now I can say I'm part of this. And so what will happen is every year, again, I've already gone through the 4 optional screenings, right? Or 3 out of the 4. And so those will be there for perpetuity, but I won't see the results of any of them unless, knock on wood, there was something wrong, and they would have to, by ethical reasons, tell me, and then I would go get, stuff figured out. And I could still be part of the study regardless. So no matter what they were to find either in my blood and or in the spinal tap or in the PETAs, they would only tell me something that was unfortunately not in my best outlook. And then they would have me go get obviously the type of help I need, but I would still be part of the study regardless. So I will continue every year hereafter to get cognitive tests. And I look at this, and this is where I'll end, in the fact that the reason why I wanted to share this, one, again, because it's such an important subject. Dementia affects everyone. It affects obviously the individual who has it, who's dealing with it. It affects the loved ones, right? It affects those who care in the medical field for those dementia patients. It affects everything and everyone. And that's why I wanted to share that. And I also want to make it known, again, science has unfortunately always focused on males, particularly white European males. And all of our different studies and all of the different medical expertise is based on one, usually, right, type of model, and it's the white European male. Well, science is really falling behind, and we need to catch up by virtue of the fact that we need to incorporate all types of people, right? Not just white European males. We need to get all backgrounds. And so that's why it was such a important reason for me to speak up and say, I am taking part in this. And it's a really big deal. I think that overall, what's coolest is that my results every year are then added to a national database. So this particular study is ongoing for, for generations, assuming that they can keep their funding because for at least the next 5 years, the funding's there. But who knows if the NIH will even be here 5 years from now, right? That's why I wanted to end with this is that for now, for the next 5 years at least, this database will be growing and growing. And that's important because right now science is being attacked in the worst way. And I want people to know how important participating in something like this is. It is so comforting to know that I am being part of what will then be a database that then other studies on this subject matter will then glean from, meaning this is an ongoing study and it will keep accumulating participant data, right? And then that data, that database will then be accessible to other studies dealing with the same topic. And in maybe other ways it'll be utilized, but this will be in perpetuity, meaning like all of this information to include what I have given of my body will be used for science and hopefully a very ethical way. And I think that it's really important to realize that it's a big step because marginalized communities have unfortunately, based on history, been basically treated like livestock, treated like basically any other given animal that's in a test tube or in a lab without their permission, right? And so I want to bring credibility back to science and to properly informed and consented science. That's why this was important to me. And I want to give others the opportunity to realize it's so important not to give up on science, especially right now. Again, we're losing so much because of what's happening right now in the country. The US is basically turning back the clock of science to like medieval times. And if I can have a small part in at least creating information that then can be used later on when somehow the brain drain has stopped and we brought back some of the brains that we lost quite literally to other countries once we fight down fascism and come back to some resemblance of a better democracy that we've ever had, right? Then it'll be well worth the time that I'm taking. So I wanted to share this experience because it's important not just for marginalized people, okay, but it's important for science. And it's important for others to understand how important it is to support science. And I'm really proud to be part of this. And, kind of funny that even in this instance where I'm proud to be part of the study, I found out recently that the team that really studied hard to then come about with what we know as Alzheimer's, the head doctor, his name was Alzheimer's, that was his name. Well, he actually had a team of 5 people and he handpicked them. One of those individuals happened to be a Black male doctor. And wouldn't you know it, that Black male doctor, he came up with a lot of the diagnoses criteria that is now used, but yet he didn't get any of the credentials for it. He didn't get any credit for it. Why? Because it wouldn't have been accepted from a Black person. It was then that they went ahead and let, again, the lead doctor use his credentials. And that's a shame. So I am going to continue with this study, obviously, but knowing that I get to bring this reality and this truth to everyone who's involved in it. And I will. So that's long, but I wanted to say thank you again to everyone who is part of this study and let them know that I am very much grateful for the opportunity. And I know that it's going to mean a lot to those later on. And, if all goes well, dementia won't be the death sentence that it is now. So with that, everyone, take care, take charge, God bless.